Dr. Marcus Thompson adjusted his designer watch as he sat in the sleek Tesla Model S, his dark fingers drumming thoughtfully against the leather steering wheel. Next to him, his wife Olivia checked her appearance in the vanity mirror. Despite the casual clothing they'd chosen for today's mission, deliberately less polished than their usual professional attire, there was no hiding their natural sophistication. "Are you recording?" Marcus asked, glancing at the small camera disguised as a tie pin on his polo shirt. Olivia tapped her smartphone, checking the feed. "Crystal clear, and I've got the backup recording on my phone." She smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. Let's see how Sarah Bennett handles showing houses to a black couple with a seven-figure budget. The prestigious Hamilton and Rose real estate office stood before them, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the bright Atlanta sunshine. The couple had done their homework. Sarah Bennett was one of the top luxury real estate agents in the city, known for handling properties in the most exclusive neighborhoods, properties exactly like their own home in Buckhead, which they deliberately listed anonymously through another agency as part of their plan. "Remember," Olivia said, her legal training evident in her precise tone, "we stay calm no matter what. We're just a nice couple looking at houses in our price range." She checked her phone again, reviewing their carefully crafted backstory. "You're still a doctor. I'm still a lawyer, but we're downplaying our success. Let's see where she tries to steer us." Marcus nodded, his jaw set with determination. After 15 years as a neurosurgeon, he was used to people's expressions changing when they realized his profession. That subtle shift from dismissal to desperate accommodation. Today, they wouldn't be giving Sarah that opportunity for an attitude adjustment. The couple stepped into the cool interior of the office, where a receptionist looked up from her desk. Her smile flickered almost imperceptibly as she took in their appearance, a micro-expression both Marcus and Olivia were well trained to notice. "Welcome to Hamilton and Rose. Do you have an appointment?" "Yes," Olivia replied warmly. "We're the Thompsons, here to see Sarah Bennett about luxury properties in Buckhead." The receptionist's fingers hesitated over her keyboard. "Oh, let me see if she's available." While they waited, Marcus and Olivia exchanged knowing looks. They deliberately scheduled this appointment through the agency's online system rather than calling in. It was part of their methodology, testing how different the treatment would be when face-to-face versus over the phone or email. Sarah Bennett emerged from her office, her blonde hair perfectly styled and her cream suit immaculate. Her practiced smile stayed in place, but her eyes did the same dance as the receptionist's, that quick up and down assessment, the slight narrowing of judgment. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm Sarah Bennett." She extended her hand, her grip notably lighter than the firm handshakes she was known for. "Please, come into my office." The Thompsons followed her into a space designed to impress, with awards lining the walls and photos of luxury properties displayed like trophies. Sarah gestured to the chairs across from her desk. "So tell me what you're looking for in a home," Sarah began, her tablet poised but her enthusiasm notably muted. "We're interested in properties in Buckhead," Marcus stated clearly. "Our budget is between $2 and $3 million. Sarah's penciled eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh, well, Buckhead is quite exclusive. Have you considered Cascade Heights? There's a lovely community there that might be more comfortable for you." Olivia tilted her head, her expression innocent. "We're actually quite set on Buckhead, and we've done our research on the area, and it fits our needs perfectly." "I see." Sarah's fingers tapped her tablet. "Well, the thing about Buckhead is that the properties there require substantial down payments. The lending requirements are quite stringent." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "That won't be an issue. We're prepared to make a cash offer on the right property." The statement hung in the air. Sarah's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, that's unexpected." She cleared her throat. "Still, I think it would be responsible of me to show you some options in other areas first, just so you can compare value propositions." "We've actually seen a property online we'd love to view," Olivia interjected smoothly, pulling up her phone. "It's the Mediterranean-style estate on West Paces Ferry Road, the one with the indoor pool." The Thompsons watched as Sarah's expression froze. It was their house, the one they'd listed just days ago through another agency, making sure the listing photos didn't show any personal items that might give away their ownership. "Oh, that property." Sarah's fingers flew across her tablet. "Unfortunately, that one isn't available for viewing right now. The sellers have some very specific requirements about showings, but I have some lovely properties in Smyrna. We're really interested in that specific house," Marcus pressed. "Could you at least try to arrange a viewing?" Sarah launched into a well-practiced spiel about market realities and managing expectations. As she spoke, Olivia's phone silently recorded every word, adding to their growing collection of evidence. They'd been planning this sting operation for months, ever since they'd heard whispers about certain realtors in the area who had a pattern of steering black clients away from affluent neighborhoods. Perhaps we should go look at some properties, Sarah suggested, clearly eager to redirect them. I have several lovely homes in your price range, just in slightly different areas. As they stood to leave, Marcus caught Olivia's eye. Phase 1 was proceeding exactly as they'd anticipated. Sarah Bennett had no idea she was walking right into their carefully laid trap, or that by the end of this, her reputation in Atlanta's real estate market would never be the same. The afternoon that followed was a masterclass in subtle discrimination. Sarah took them to 3 houses, each progressively further from Buckhead and lower in price than their stated budget. Each property was in what she kept referring to as urban-friendly neighborhoods or vibrant communities, the coded language that made both Marcus and Olivia mentally add to their documentation. This property has a wonderful family room, Sarah was saying as she led them through a house worth barely half their stated budget, and the neighborhood is very diverse. I think you'd feel right at home here. Olivia smiled pleasantly while her hidden camera captured everything. It's nice, but we really had our hearts set on that Mediterranean house in Buckhead. Are you sure you can't arrange a viewing? Sarah's smile tightened again. As I mentioned, that property is complicated. The sellers are very particular. Besides, I really think this area would be a better fit for your family. Why is that? Marcus asked innocently, noting how Sarah's hand tightened on her portfolio. Well, the community here is more welcoming. Buckhead can be quite traditional in its values. The Thompsons exchanged glances. They'd lived in Buckhead for 5 years and had never had any issues with their neighbors. In fact, they regularly hosted dinner parties for the neighborhood association. As they wrapped up the showings, Sarah tried one final time to discourage their interest in Buckhead. I really think you should consider making an offer on the colonial we saw. It's much more reasonable for your situation. We'll think about it, Olivia said smoothly. But we're still very interested in that Mediterranean house. Could you at least find out what the seller's specific requirements are for viewing? Sarah's smile was strained. Of course, I'll look into it. They all knew she wouldn't. Back in their Tesla, Marcus and Olivia reviewed their recordings. They had nearly 2 hours of footage documenting every microaggression, every attempt at steering, every coded phrase Sarah had used. Phase 1 complete, Olivia said, sending the footage to their secure cloud storage. Ready for Phase 2? Marcus smiled. Looking forward to it. Let's see how she reacts tomorrow when she shows up for that sellers meeting at our house. As they drove home to their Mediterranean estate, the very one Sarah had insisted they couldn't view, they felt a deep satisfaction. Years of dealing with systemic racism had taught them to fight smart, not loud. By this time tomorrow, Sarah Bennett would learn exactly why that was such an effective strategy. Neither of them mentioned the fact that this wasn't just about one racist realtor. This was about documenting a systemic problem, about creating evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Their cameras had captured what so many people of color experienced every day in the housing market, but rarely could prove. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation, but tonight they had preparations to make. After all, hosting a real estate agent who's about to realize she's been caught in her own discriminatory web requires careful planning. Should we put out those family photos we took down for the listing photos? Olivia asked as they pulled into their driveway. Marcus grinned. Oh, definitely. In fact, let's put out every award, degree, and professional certification we have. I want them all visible when she walks in. They had built their success methodically, overcome barriers systematically, and now they would expose discrimination exactly the same way, with careful planning, meticulous documentation, and the patience to wait for exactly the right moment to reveal their hand. Phase 2 would begin tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp, when Sarah Bennett would arrive for what she thought was a routine meeting with potential sellers, unaware that she was about to come face to face with the very clients she had just spent an afternoon discriminating against. The next morning, Marcus and Olivia Thompson's Mediterranean estate gleamed in the early sunlight. Every family photo was strategically placed, their wedding portrait showing them in designer attire, pictures from medical gala and law firm partnership ceremonies, and most prominently, the photo of them receiving a community leadership award from the mayor of Atlanta. Final check, Olivia said, adjusting the hidden cameras they'd placed around their home office. Everything recording? Marcus nodded, reviewing the feeds on his tablet. All systems go. Stephen is ready too. Stephen Chen, their actual realtor, sat comfortably in their kitchen, out of sight but prepared to witness everything. He'd been appalled by their documentation of Sarah's behavior and had agreed to help expose the discrimination. Sarah's track record speaks for itself, Stephen had told them during their planning session. Her sales data shows a clear pattern. In 5 years, she hasn't sold a single Buckhead property to a black family despite showing houses to dozens of qualified black buyers. Now, at precisely 9:55 a.m., Sarah's luxury SUV pulled into their circular driveway. Through the security cameras, they watched her step out, smoothing her designer suit and checking her makeup in her car window. Right on time, Marcus murmured. Let's see how long she maintains that professional smile. The doorbell chimed. Their housekeeper, Maria, who was also in on the plan, opened the door with practiced efficiency. Ms. Bennett, please come in. The owners are waiting in their office. Sarah's heels clicked on the marble floors as she followed Maria. Her portfolio clutched professionally against her chest. They could practically see her mentally calculating her potential commission on a property of this caliber. Maria opened the office door. Ms. Bennett for you, Dr. and Mrs. Thompson. Sarah stepped in, her practiced smile freezing as she registered who sat before her. Marcus and Olivia remained seated behind their massive desk, their expressions pleasant but unyielding. Ms. Bennett, Olivia said smoothly, thank you for coming to discuss the sale of our home. Please have a seat. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her complexion shifting from professional bronze to ashen. Her portfolio slipped slightly in her grasp. There must be some mistake, she managed, her eyes darting between them and the door. No mistake, Marcus replied, his tone deliberately calm. This is our home. The same Mediterranean-style estate with the indoor pool that we expressed interest in viewing yesterday. Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Sarah sank into one of the leather chairs facing their desk, her usual poise deserting her. I can explain. Oh, we're counting on that, Olivia said, lifting her tablet. In fact, we've documented quite a few things that need explaining. Shall we review them together? The next 30 minutes were excruciating for Sarah as the Thompsons methodically presented their evidence. They played video clips of her steering them away from Buckhead, her coded language about suitable neighborhoods, and her lies about their own home being unavailable for viewing. What's particularly interesting, Marcus noted, pulling up a spreadsheet, is how your behavior fits into a larger pattern. Our legal team has analyzed your sales data for the past 5 years. Would you like to explain why none of your Buckhead sales have been to black families, despite showing properties to numerous qualified black buyers? Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. That's just coincidence. Market forces? Market forces? Olivia's eyebrow arched. Like the market forces that made you show us houses at half our stated budget? Or the market forces that had you questioning our ability to make a cash offer despite our clearly stated financial position? I was trying to show you all available options, Sarah attempted, her voice weak. Really? Marcus pressed a button on his tablet and Sarah's voice filled the room. Buckhead can be quite traditional in its values. Another click. This neighborhood is more welcoming. Another. I think you'd feel right at home here. Sarah's face had gone from ashen to flushed. You were recording me? That's illegal. Actually, Olivia smiled, sliding a document across the desk. Georgia is a one-party consent state for recordings. As my law firm's specialization is housing discrimination, I'm quite familiar with the relevant statutes. Would you like me to cite them? What do you want? Sarah's voice had lost its professional polish, taking on a slight tremor. What we want, Marcus said, leaning forward, is for this practice to stop. Not just with you, but system-wide. We've already filed complaints with the Georgia Real Estate Commission, the National Association of Realtors, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. You can't prove? Actually, Stephen said, stepping into the room right on cue. They can. And as a fellow realtor, I'm prepared to testify about the pattern of discrimination I've observed in this market. Sarah's head whipped around, her eyes widening at the sight of one of her well-respected colleagues standing as a witness against her. This, she swallowed hard, this will ruin me. Discrimination should have consequences, Olivia stated firmly. How many families have you steered away from their dream homes? How many qualified buyers have you prejudged based on their race? I never, Sarah began, then stopped as Marcus raised his hand. Please, he said quietly, don't insult our intelligence by denying what we've documented so thoroughly. Instead, let's discuss next steps. Olivia lifted another document. We're prepared to offer you a choice. Option 1. We proceed with our formal complaints, which include today's documented attempt to deceive potential clients about property availability. Given the evidence we've compiled, you'll likely lose your license. Sarah's hands gripped her portfolio so tightly, her knuckles whitened. And option 2? You admit to your discriminatory practices, Marcus said. You agree to testify about systemic discrimination in the Atlanta real estate market. You undergo extensive bias training, and you commit to actively working to combat housing discrimination. You want me to testify against other agents? We want you to tell the truth, Olivia corrected, about your own actions and about the institutional practices that enable discrimination in housing. Your testimony could help create real change. Sarah's professional facade had completely crumbled. She looked between the faces surrounding her. Marcus's stern determination, Olivia's legal precision, Stephen's professional disappointment. I need time to think about this. You have 24 hours, Olivia stated. After that, we proceed with the formal complaints. Marcus stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I suggest you think carefully about your legacy in this industry, Ms. Bennett. Do you want to be remembered as part of the problem or part of the solution? As Stephen escorted a shaken Sarah out, the Thompsons exchanged glances. This confrontation was just the beginning. Their real goal wasn't to punish one discriminatory realtor. It was to expose and challenge the systemic racism that still plagued the housing market. Think she'll take the deal? Marcus asked once they were alone. Olivia smiled grimly. She's a survivor. Once she realizes her career is over if she doesn't cooperate, she'll make the practical choice. And if she doesn't, then we move forward with the complaints and we find another way to expose the system. Olivia's voice was firm. This isn't just about Sarah Bennett. It's about every black family that's been steered away from their dreams, every neighborhood that's been kept artificially segregated, every excuse and coded phrase used to maintain housing discrimination in the modern era. Marcus nodded, reviewing the recordings from their confrontation. At least we've given her a chance to be part of the change instead of just suffering the consequences. Speaking of consequences, Olivia said, checking her phone, Maria tells me Sarah threw up in our front garden before getting in her car. Good, Marcus replied without sympathy. Let her feel a fraction of the discomfort she's caused others. Tomorrow, we'll see if she's ready to help us make real change or if we need to move forward with Plan B. They spent the rest of the day preparing their formal complaints, ensuring every document was perfect, every piece of evidence properly cataloged. Their methodology had to be flawless. They weren't just building a case against one realtor, they were creating a template for exposing systemic discrimination. As evening fell, they received a text from Stephen. Sarah's been making calls all afternoon. Word is she's consulting with her lawyer. Several other agents are nervous about what she might say. Olivia smiled at the message. The ripples are spreading already. Want to bet how many other realtors are rushing to review their sales patterns right now? No bet, Marcus chuckled. But tomorrow's going to be very interesting. They had set their trap perfectly, executed their plan flawlessly, and now all that remained was to see how Sarah Bennett would choose to face the consequences of her actions. Either way, change was coming to Atlanta's real estate market, one way or another. The next morning would bring either Sarah's cooperation or the beginning of a very public legal battle. The Thompsons were prepared for either outcome. After all, justice, like success, required patience, planning, and the courage to see things through to the end. The next morning, Sarah Bennett arrived at the Thompsons' home precisely 5 minutes before her deadline. This time, there was no designer suit, no perfectly styled hair, no artificial smile. Instead, she wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back severely, her face stripped of its usual confidence. Marcus and Olivia watched her approach through their security cameras, noting how different she looked from the polished professional who had so casually discriminated against them just 2 days ago. She's made her decision, Olivia observed, recognizing the body language of someone who had spent a sleepless night confronting hard truths. Maria showed Sarah into the home office again, where the Thompsons sat waiting with Stephen and a new addition, James Marshall, Olivia's law partner, who specialized in housing discrimination cases. Ms. Bennett, Marcus greeted her, please sit down. Sarah sank into the chair, clutching a thick folder. I've been up all night, she began, her voice hoarse, looking through my records, really looking at them for the first time. And what did you find? Olivia asked quietly. Sarah placed the folder on the desk with trembling hands. Everything you accuse me of. It's all there. The steering, the redlining, the coded language. I told myself I was just responding to market forces, giving clients what they wanted, but when I actually analyzed my sales patterns, she swallowed hard. I'm ashamed. The Thompsons exchanged glances. This was more than they'd expected, not just cooperation, but genuine recognition. Shame is a starting point, James Marshall spoke up, his deep voice filling the room. But what matters now is action. Are you prepared to make this right? Sarah straightened in her chair. Yes, I've already spoken with my lawyer. I'm ready to testify, not just about my own actions, but about the whole system. The unofficial policies, the unspoken expectations, all of it. You understand what this means? Stephen asked his fellow realtor. This could affect everyone in the Atlanta luxury real estate market. It should affect them, Sarah replied, a hint of her old strength returning, but now redirected. What I've been doing, it's not just illegal, it's wrong, and it needs to stop. Olivia pulled out a document. We've prepared a formal agreement. In exchange for your full cooperation and testimony, we'll withdraw our complaints to the licensing board. However, she fixed Sarah with a stern look. Any deviation from full honesty, any attempt to minimize or obscure the truth, and we proceed with the original penalties. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Sarah reached for the document with steady hands. But before I sign, there's something else you should know. The room went quiet as Sarah pulled out her phone. Last night, I sent emails to every black family I've steered away from Buckhead properties over the last 5 years. I apologized and offered to provide documentation of my discriminatory practices if they want to pursue legal action. Marcus leaned back, genuinely surprised. That wasn't part of our requirements. I know, Sarah replied, but it's part of mine. I can't undo what I did, but I can help them prove what was done to them. She looked down at her phone. 3 have already responded. They're angry, hurt, and they want to fight. James Marshall was already making notes. We can consolidate their cases, create a class action suit against the agencies that enabled these practices. It won't just be me, Sarah warned. Other agents are already calling and worried about what I might say. Some are threatening, some are offering bribes to keep quiet. But others, she paused, others are like me. They've been part of the system for so long they stopped seeing it. Now they're being forced to look. Olivia said firmly, let them look. Let them see exactly what they've been part of. Sarah signed the agreement with a steady hand. As soon as she finished, Stephen stepped forward with a recorder. Let's start with your official statement, he said. Take us through your standard practices when dealing with black clients interested in Buckhead properties. For the next 2 hours, Sarah detailed everything. The coded language used in real estate offices, the unofficial policies about maintaining neighborhood character, the subtle and not so subtle ways agents steered black families away from white neighborhoods. She named names, cited specific instances, and provided documents supporting every claim. The thing is, she said toward the end, we never called it racism. We called it market awareness, or client service, or maintaining property values. We wrapped discrimination in professional language and pretended it was just business. It stops now, Marcus stated firmly, at least in Atlanta. It's already stopping, Stephen reported, checking his phone. Word's getting out about Sarah's testimony. 3 other agents have contacted me wanting to come forward. They see which way the wind is blowing. James Marshall smiled grimly. Once the first lawsuit hits the news, there will be more, much more. Sarah looked at the Thompsons. Why did you do it this way? You could have just filed complaints against me, had my license revoked. Why offer me a chance to make it right? Because removing one racist realtor doesn't change the system, Olivia explained. But having that realtor expose the entire structure of housing discrimination, that creates real change. And, Marcus added, because people who've benefited from racism need to be part of ending it. It's not enough for the victims to fight back. The perpetrators need to step up, admit their wrongs, and work to fix things. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make this right. Good. James Marshall stood. Because we're holding a press conference tomorrow. The Thompsons will announce their lawsuit, and you'll be there to verify everything. Your testimony will make it impossible for anyone to dismiss this as an isolated incident. I'll be there, Sarah promised. She stood to leave, then paused. You know they'll come after me. The other realtors, the agencies, they'll try to destroy me. Let them try, Olivia said firmly. We've got your back. That's part of the deal. You tell the truth, we protect you. After Sarah left, the Thompsons sat back in their office, surrounded by the evidence they'd gathered and the allies they'd assembled. Think she'll follow through? Marcus asked. She will, Stephen answered. She's burned her bridges. Her only way forward now is through this. Besides, James added, we've got recordings of everything she just admitted. She knows that. Olivia was already working on her tablet. The press conference is arranged. Every major network, plus all the local stations. By this time tomorrow, the entire Atlanta real estate market will be in chaos. Good, Marcus said firmly. Sometimes things need to break before they can be fixed properly. Over the next few weeks, the story exploded. Sarah's testimony, combined with the Thompsons' meticulous evidence, exposed decades of systematic housing discrimination. Other realtors came forward, either voluntarily or under pressure, confirming every detail. The lawsuits multiplied as more families came forward with their stories. The Thompsons' case became a template, showing others how to document and prove discrimination. Real estate agencies across Atlanta rushed to implement new policies and training programs, desperate to avoid being the next target. 3 months later, Marcus and Olivia stood in their garden watching as a black family toured the house next door with an eager realtor, one of the new generation who had emerged after the old guard fell. Think we made a difference? Marcus asked softly. Olivia squeezed his hand. Look around. Every open house in Buckhead this weekend has black families attending. Realtors are terrified of being caught discriminating. Agencies are competing to show how inclusive they are. Yeah, we made a difference. And Sarah? Teaching anti-discrimination seminars to real estate agents across the South. Turns out she's pretty good at explaining how racism works in the industry, now that she's admitted her own part in it. They watched the family next door getting excited about the house, the realtor earnestly pointing out features, no hint of steering or discouragement in sight. You know, Marcus mused, when we planned this, we just wanted to expose one racist realtor. We never expected to shake up the whole system. Sometimes justice has a way of spreading, Olivia replied. Once you shine a light on darkness, it tends to scatter everywhere. Inside their home, their phones buzzed with messages from other couples around the country, asking for advice on how to replicate their sting operation in other cities. The Thompsons' methods had become a blueprint for fighting housing discrimination nationwide. They had turned their experience with racism into a weapon against the system itself, using intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking to create change that force alone could never achieve. In the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all, not just defeating one racist realtor, but helping to dismantle the very system that had empowered her. And it had all started with a simple question. You own the house? Yes, they own the house, and now they own something even more valuable, a proven way to fight back against housing discrimination, one real estate office at a time. The sun set over Buckhead, casting long shadows across the changing landscape of Atlanta's most exclusive neighborhood. Change was coming, not just here but across the country, as other couples followed the Thompsons' example, setting their own traps, gathering their own evidence, creating their own moments of revelation. Justice, it turned out, was contagious, and the Thompsons had just started an epidemic.